Imagine, if you will, standing at the edge of a battlefield you never wanted to be on. You didn't start the war, you didn't raise a weapon, you were simply trying to love, to forgive, to make peace, to hold together what others were breaking apart. And yet, despite your intentions, despite your purity, kindness, and sacrifices, you became the target of cruelty, betrayal, and manipulation. They took your gentleness for weakness, your patience for passivity, and your silence for defeat. But what they didn't realize was that you were never fighting alone. There are moments in life so bitterly unjust that they tempt you to take matters into your own hands. Moments when the hurt festers in the silence of your heart and you wonder if God even noticed. Moments when you're tempted to shout, to retaliate, to explain, to scream your truth so loudly that it silences the lies. But there's something sacred about restraint. Something holy about trusting that God saw it all. God saw the nights you cried silently into your pillow while pretending to be strong in front of the world. He saw the meetings where they spoke against you and the rooms you weren't invited to because of their gossip. He saw the fake smiles, the closed doors, the subtle sabotage, the plans designed to shame you. And yet, he said, "Be still." Not because justice doesn't matter, but because it belongs to him. To walk away does not mean to lose, it means to let the judge take his seat. There's a quiet kind of faith that only the wounded carry, the faith that says, "I don't need to prove myself anymore," the faith that says, "I'll step back not because I'm weak, but because God is mighty." There is a divine strength in turning your back, not on justice, but on vengeance. You see, when you walk away, you're not abandoning the fight. You're handing it over to the one whose eyes never sleep. When you try to fight every lie, correct every injustice, expose every betrayal, you become drained, distracted, and distant from the very peace God is trying to give you. But when you choose to release it, when you lay it at the altar and walk away, you make space for heaven to intervene. You stop blocking God's hand by lifting your own. You are not a failure for walking away. You are not a coward for choosing peace over chaos. In fact, sometimes it is the most powerful declaration of faith. Because when you walk away, you are telling heaven, "I trust you to handle what my heart cannot carry anymore." Let the world laugh. Let them believe you lost. Let them say you were defeated. Let them write their stories, because the author of your life is not done writing his. And when God writes justice, he doesn't write in whispers. He writes in earthquakes, in turned tables, in exposed hearts, and in reversed outcomes. But he writes it in his timing, not yours. If you could see what God is preparing behind the curtain, you would stop mourning what you walked away from, because what is coming is not just a response, it's a restoration. A divine correction so precise that it leaves no doubt whose hand was in it. So, dear soul, walk away. Walk away from what hurt you. Walk away from who shamed you. Walk away from the need to explain, to prove, to retaliate. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in sacred surrender. Because when you walk away and choose peace over pride, stillness over shouting, and surrender over striving, you don't walk away alone. God walks behind you, before you, beside you. And when he moves in justice, in power, in truth, and in full view of those who thought he wasn't watching. So be still, be silent, and just watch. Watch how God works when you stop interfering with his plan. Watch how heaven responds when your heart stops wrestling. Watch how those who mocked your pain begin to tremble when they realize it wasn't you they were fighting, It was the one who walks with the broken and defends the pure. God saw it all, and now all he asks of you is to walk away and watch him work. God was there in every silent betrayal. They thought you didn't know. They assumed their actions would go unnoticed because you remained calm. But just because you said nothing doesn't mean you felt nothing. You did feel it. All of it. The sting of being used, the ache of being excluded, the crushing weight of being misunderstood. And yet you held your peace. You wore silence like a shield, not because you were blind to their betrayal, but because your spirit was anchored in something deeper than human retaliation. And while they smiled and schemed and walked away thinking they had succeeded, there was one who never looked away, one who sat beside you in the darkness, one who stood behind you in every storm. God was there, not merely as a passive observer, but as an eternal witness. He saw when your kindness was mistaken for foolishness. He saw when your loyalty was twisted into weakness. He saw it all. Not a moment escaped him. In the divine courtroom of heaven, no injustice ever goes unrecorded. No tear is ever wasted. No wound is ever invisible to the eyes of the one who created your soul. God was there when they sent the message meant to destroy your reputation. He was there when they excluded you from the table you helped build. He heard the conversations behind closed doors. He watched as you were reduced to a villain in a story where you were always the one trying to save everyone. Your pain is sacred to him. It is not forgotten, dismissed, or overlooked. It is gathered, cradled, and counted. The very hairs on your head are numbered. How much more the moments that broke your heart. God is not indifferent to your sorrow. He is not distant in your suffering. His justice does not slumber, and his awareness never dims. When they were plotting in shadows, heaven's light was watching. And when they walked away confident that they had buried you, they forgot one thing. Resurrection always begins in darkness. You are not alone. You never were. And though the world may not have defended you, though those closest to you may have turned away, God never did. His presence was the silent comfort in your most broken hour. He saw not only what they did, but how you responded. He saw you forgive when you could have hated. He saw you stay silent when you had every right to scream. He saw your strength masked as meekness and your tears disguised as resilience. So don't ever think you are forsaken. Don't ever believe the lie that you suffered unnoticed. The very God who counts the stars and calls them by name counted your tears too and called them holy. They thought they buried the truth, but the truth is never buried, it is planted. And God is the gardener. What they meant to destroy, he is using to grow something far more powerful than revenge. Redemption. Walking away isn't weakness. It's worship. It takes far more strength to walk away in silence than to stay and scream for justice. The world teaches us that power is found in retaliation, in making noise, in getting the last word. But the kingdom of God whispers a different truth, that the strongest are those who choose peace in the face of provocation, stillness in the face of chaos, and trust in the face of betrayal. You weren't weak when you walked away, you were wise. You weren't defeated, you were discerning. Because walking away isn't surrendering to the enemy, it's surrendering to God. It's saying, Lord, I trust you more than I trust my own hands. I believe you will do more in silence than I can accomplish in rage. When your soul is aligned with heaven, walking away becomes an act of worship. It is a sacrifice, a letting go of your right to revenge in exchange for divine justice. You are not abandoning the battlefield. You are placing it in the hands of the one who has never lost a war. There is something sacred about silence, that the loud world cannot understand. In the silence of your departure, God begins to work. In your surrender, He begins to fight. And His ways are not only higher, they are deeper, more complete, and rooted in perfect righteousness. Yes, your heart wanted to shout. Yes, your flesh burned with the desire to explain, to defend, to expose. But you chose the higher road. And that choice did not go unnoticed in heaven. Angels witnessed your restraint. Heaven applauded your obedience, and God received your silence as worship. They thought you left because you had no fight left in you. But in truth, you had already won. You had overcome the temptation to stoop to their level. You had conquered the urge to match their cruelty. You had triumphed over the need to be right in order to be righteous. Every time you walked away when you could have clapped back, heaven stood still. Because in that moment, you became more than a victim. You became a vessel of peace, a carrier of divine restraint, a walking testimony that vengeance belongs to the Lord and not to you. And though they may interpret your distance as weakness, God calls it wisdom. They may see your silence as defeat, but God calls it devotion. Walking away wasn't quitting. It was handing the situation over to the only one who knows how to bring truth to light without damaging your soul. So walk on, not with bitterness, but with reverence. Every step you take away from chaos is a step closer to divine justice. And while they may still be fighting battles that drain them, you'll be walking in worship, safe, steady, and silently backed by heaven. God waits for the right time to make all things right. The pain of injustice often feels unbearable, not only because of the betrayal itself, but because of how long we must wait to see things made right. Time stretches like a silent desert, and our hearts cry out, "Lord, when?" We imagine justice to be immediate, swift, undeniable. But God is not moved by urgency. He is moved by purpose. And His purpose is always perfect. When someone wounds you and walks away untouched, it can seem like heaven is silent. You wonder why evil is allowed to stand, why lies seem louder than truth, and why the wrongdoer keeps smiling while you keep praying. But God is not blind. He is not late. He is deliberate. What you see as delay, He sees as development. He is building something behind the scenes, and what He is building will last. Justice in the hands of man is often rushed, reactive, and incomplete. But justice in the hands of God is patient, layered, and transformative. He does not simply expose the wrong. He restores the right. He is not just writing a response, He is rewriting the entire outcome. God does not merely correct events, He redeems hearts. That is why He waits. Because sometimes those who hurt you are not just enemies of your peace. They are prisoners of their own brokenness. God doesn't want to just punish them. He wants to confront them with truth, to give them time to see their actions clearly. Not all justice is immediate, because not all hearts are ready to face themselves. God wants the correction to go deep enough to awaken them, not just discipline them. Ezekiel chapter 9, 1 Gerald, 1 Karuti. He also waits for you, for your heart to be whole, for your soul to be rooted in His peace. Sometimes the process is not about what He's doing to them, but what He's doing in you. He's healing the places where their betrayal took root. He's strengthening your identity so that you no longer need their apology to feel free. He's shifting your posture from a wounded servant to a radiant child of the King. When He does act, it will be unmistakable. God doesn't bring justice in whispers. He brings it in revelation. It may not come in the way you imagined, but it will come in a way that brings peace to your soul and glory to His name. And when He moves, there will be no doubt that it was His hand and not yours. So while it feels slow, trust that it is strategic. He's not ignoring what happened. He's writing a response that will echo across every level of your life. In His time, what was hidden will be revealed. What was broken will be rebuilt. And what was done in darkness will be judged by light. You are not waiting in vain. You are waiting in faith. And faith tells you that what God is doing in the silence will one day speak louder than any lie ever told about you. When you let go, you make room for God to step in. There is a sacred tension in letting go. Your heart wants to hold on, to control, to fix, to understand. But the deeper your grip, the more exhausted your soul becomes. Because we were never created to carry the weight of vengeance or justice or the burden of unresolved pain. That's why letting go isn't just emotional wisdom, it's spiritual obedience. Letting go doesn't mean the hurt didn't happen. It means you're surrendering your right to be the judge. It means you're opening your clenched fists and saying, God, I trust you more than I trust my own hands. When you let go, you're not giving up. You're giving it over to the only one who knows every angle of the truth and every motive of the heart. You see, as long as your hands are full of what they did to you, they're too full to receive what God wants to give you next. You can't receive healing while holding bitterness. You can't walk in peace while dragging pain. But when you let go, you shift from surviving the betrayal to stepping into divine transformation. There's something powerful that happens in the unseen world when you say, I release them. Heaven hears that release and moves to fill the space you've made. Angels begin to work, doors begin to open, peace begins to enter like a river. Because now God is invited into a space that was previously occupied by your need to make things right. Letting go is not denial, it's invitation. It's a quiet but thunderous prayer that says, God, I believe you can do more with this than I can. You release the situation, the people, the pain, and the outcome, and in return you receive clarity, peace, and divine intervention. It also breaks the soul tie to your oppressors. As long as your heart is entangled with resentment, you are still emotionally bound to those who wronged you. But forgiveness severs that chain. Letting go cuts the cord. You are no longer defined by what they did. You are defined by who you trust. And here's the mystery. The moment you release them, they are no longer your problem. They become God's responsibility. And He knows how to handle what breaks His children. He knows how to speak to the hearts you cannot reach. He knows how to humble, how to confront, how to correct, and most of all, how to protect. So don't carry what you were never meant to hold. Let it go, not because they deserve it, but because you do. You deserve freedom. You deserve peace. And you will never experience the full power of God's restoration until your hands are empty enough to receive it. Release them. Release the outcome. And prepare to see what happens when God steps in. The peace that follows obedience is greater than the satisfaction of revenge. There is a moment in every wounded soul's journey where the heart is torn between two voices. One whispers, let it go, trust God. The other shouts, they must pay for what they did. And often the second voice is louder, more seductive, more satisfying to the flesh. It promises a moment of triumph, a taste of justice. But what it never tells you is that revenge may satisfy your pride, but it will starve your spirit. True peace never grows in the soil of retaliation. It blossoms in the quiet garden of obedience. When you choose to obey God and walk away from the temptation to take matters into your own hands, something profound happens within you. Your heart, though aching, begins to settle. Your spirit, though bruised, starts to breathe again. That is the sacred reward of obedience. A peace that doesn't come from circumstances, but from alignment with heaven. The world teaches that victory looks like getting the last word, exposing the wrongdoer, standing over the ashes of someone else's downfall. But God defines victory differently. For Him, victory is when your soul no longer thirsts for revenge. It is when you are so secure in His justice that you no longer crave human validation. It is when your hands are clean and your heart is light, even though the battle still rages around you. That kind of peace can't be bought. It can't be manipulated. It can only be received through surrender. Obedience often looks like silence when the world expects shouting. It looks like stillness when everything within you wants to fight. It looks like walking away not in defeat, but with dignity. And each time you choose that path, you align your life with the rhythm of heaven. You echo the posture of Christ Himself, who, though innocent, did not open His mouth when falsely accused, because He trusted the one who judges justly. There is strength in silence. There is power in walking away. And there is healing in obeying God's whisper to rest and release. You may not see the immediate reward of your obedience, but heaven is already moving. The justice you surrendered is now in the hands of one who writes with eternal ink. The peace you receive is not just a moment of relief. It's the evidence of His presence resting upon you. As your building says, all of it was here and now, and you receive nothing. But it is all, and when you sleep at night, you won't toss and turn with rehearsed arguments. You won't lie awake trying to calculate revenge. You'll sleep in stillness, because your heart is no longer chained to what they did. You are bound to what God is doing. Revenge may give you a story to tell, but peace gives you a life to live. Those who hurt you will one day see who is fighting for you. They thought they were only fighting you. They thought they were only mocking, slandering, discarding one small person who couldn't fight back. But what they didn't know, what they failed to see, was that you were not standing alone. You never were. When people hurt you unjustly and walk away feeling powerful, they forget there is a defender who watches in silence but moves in justice. God does not need to thunder from the skies to prove His presence. He simply waits. And while He waits, He watches. And while He watches, He remembers. Not one offense goes unnoticed. Not one tear is lost in the void. Every betrayal against the child of God is recorded in the chambers of divine justice. You didn't fight back, but you didn't need to. Your restraint wasn't weakness, it was protection. Because every time you said nothing, you said everything to the heavens. You said, I trust you, Lord. And when heaven hears that trust, it moves on your behalf in ways unseen and undeniable. There will come a time, maybe not today, maybe not even soon, but a time ordained by heaven, where those who mocked your silence will be silenced by God's movement. They will see that you were not protected by reputation or influence or human support, but by something much greater. They will see that God Himself was behind the scenes of your story, and that realization will shake them. Because they were not just wounding a person, they were interfering with a purpose. They were not just attacking your name, they were opposing His plan. God has a way of vindicating the humble in such a way that it leaves no doubt about who was involved. He brings light in a way that darkness cannot argue with. He lifts the lowly in a way that the proud cannot ignore. When he moves for you, the very people who underestimated you will be forced to recognize it wasn't just you they were dealing with. They thought your prayers were weak whispers. They thought your surrender meant surrendering control. But your prayers were weapons, and your surrender was a strategy. God never forgets who touched his anointed. He never turns a blind eye to those who exploit, harm, or manipulate the pure-hearted. And the moment you stepped out of the fight and into his covering, the war became his. And he never fights a battle without winning it. So rest, dear soul. Let them think what they will. Let them laugh for now. Because while they gloat, God is preparing a revelation. And when it comes, it won't just vindicate you, it will glorify him. They will know who fought for you. They will know who raised you. They will know the power of a soul protected by heaven, and the only sound left will be the silence of those who once spoke against you. Your story isn't over, it's being rewritten by God's hand. When you've been betrayed, mocked, or discarded, it can feel like your story has reached a cruel ending. The people who hurt you may have walked away with a smile, leaving you behind like a chapter they no longer cared to read. They wrote you off, assuming the pain they caused was your final sentence. But what they didn't know is that the author of your life is still holding the pen. This is not the end. It's a turning page, a divine pause before a sacred plot twist. The ink of their cruelty may have stained the paper, but it will never define the whole story. Because your life is not written by the hands of those who broke you, it is being rewritten by the hand of the one who created you. God specializes in redemptive rewrites. He sees the torn pages, the crossed-out dreams, the paragraphs filled with sorrow, and he doesn't erase them to pretend they never happened. He redeems them. He rewrites around them. He builds beauty out of the brokenness, stitching light through the darkness like golden threads in a tapestry that only he can see from above. You may feel forgotten. You may feel like your story doesn't matter anymore, but in the heavenly library your name is written in ink that cannot fade, and every injustice you've faced is being folded into a new narrative, one where you are not just the victim, but the survivor, not just the abandoned, but the chosen, not just the one who was hurt, but the one who rose. When you walk away from the pain and surrender your broken chapters to God, you give him permission to do what only he can do. He won't just end the story differently. He will make the middle make sense. You will look back and see that the betrayal was not your burial, but your becoming. That the heartbreak didn't ruin you, it rerouted you. That the rejection wasn't the final word, it was a divine comma. God does not waste pain, he transforms it. What was meant to silence you will become your testimony. What was meant to break you will become the evidence of his restoration. And when others read your story, they won't just see pain, they will see purpose. They will see how you endured, how you trusted, how you kept walking when it would have been easier to collapse. And most of all, they will see the fingerprint of God on every line. So hand the pen back to him. Let him write what they tried to destroy. Let him finish what they attempted to end. Because the greatest stories are not the ones without conflict. They are the ones where the hero rose in spite of it. And you, dear soul, are still rising. You were never meant to carry the burden of proving yourself to those who delighted in your downfall. You were never designed to hold the sword of vengeance or to chase after those who broke you in silence. What they did was seen. What they whispered was recorded, and what they meant for evil, God is already repurposing for glory. Let this be your freedom. You don't have to fight anymore. You don't have to explain. You don't have to beg to be understood, to be heard, or to be vindicated. God saw it all. He saw your tears, your restraint, your prayers whispered through clenched teeth and trembling hands. He saw the moments you were tempted to fight back, but chose to surrender instead. He saw the depth of your hurt, and he took it personally. Now let him take it fully. Walk away, not in bitterness, but in boldness. Walk away, not in defeat, but in divine trust. Walk away and watch what heaven does when one of its children refuses to fight a battle God has already claimed. You've done your part. You stood your ground. You loved with honesty. You endured with grace. Now, step aside and watch him work.